A good Western North Carolina morning to you. I'm outside on the deck and things are getting going. I know there's dogs barking in the background, but I have left my mic at my other place right now and there's good cars going by. But I want to do a demo. I want to do a product review. I can't win here. Bye. I want to do a product review. I normally, for my new students for pastel, have been working with wet dry sandpaper from a hardware store. It has a very similar grit to a pastel paper, a professional pastel paper, and it's not archival, I don't believe. I haven't tested that one out, but it's affordable for new pastelists, so they get that feeling of whether pastel is the medium for them or not. The other day, in a local art store, I came across this Canson dry mixed media paper. It's fascinating. It has sand on both sides. I want to try it out. I want to also try it with some fluids because you want a paper, I want a paper, to be able to take fluids and to have great versatility. So, a little shot of espresso and let's check it out. I just grabbed a sketch that I've been working on and I'm trying to get more familiar with. And here I have vine charcoal. So I'm laying in the value areas using the side of the vine charcoal and also the tip to try out how it's working for details. You'll see here in a moment that the texture down the left side is odd to me. I'm on a flat surface, but it's creating some sort of other design. So I grabbed my alcohol spray and I'm trying to wash it in to even out that tone. It's not working the way I would like it to work or what I'm used to. Perhaps with some more practice and playing around with this, I'd be happier. But at this point, I was getting a little bit frustrated with it. Here's a close-up so you can see that irregular texture as well. It just wasn't blending the way I wanted it to. So I thought, well, let's try color. I grabbed my pan pastels because pan pastels often will cover an irregular surface very nicely. It was laying down some color, but not to the intensity that I'm used to with the pan pastels. The grit or sand on the paper is not sharp enough microscopically to really grab color, in my opinion. It seemed to have a grit that's a little more rounded, a little softer. So if that's something that you would like to work with, this perhaps would be the paper for you. But for my normal approach, this isn't really working as I was hoping. Now I'm with new pastel. It was just not grabbing the new pastel. The pastel was too hard for it. I tried, as you saw, using the tip of the new pastel to try to lay in some color. That worked a little better. My board keeps moving. I have to hold it down. I'm on my plein air easel outside. It's not quite as sturdy as my French easel. Now I'm grabbing some soft pastels. I want to see how those lay across. This, I believe, is a Diane Townsend, so it has some of its own grit, and that seems to be grabbing onto the paper a little bit more, instead of the paper grabbing it. This is one of my homemade pastels. Again, a bit more grit. Just trying different colors, different brands. I think this might be a Terry Ludwig. At this point, now I'm back with the Vine charcoal. I am just really trying to give this paper a chance. I knew a bit back that it wasn't working the way I wanted it to. Again, I'm sure it's suited for something special or a special approach, but it wasn't working for my approach. Maybe just for a charcoal drawing, but then I'm thinking about going back to the beginning where it took the flat side of the Vine charcoal irregularly. Regardless, I'm continuing and trying to give it a good chance. Here I'm layering light over a darker area. Didn't quite grab onto that either. So here's a close-up of this figure and some of the texture. You can see how it's skipping and not grabbing quite enough. Plus, with the alcohol, look at the waves in the paper. It's wrinkled, the paper. You'd have to mount it. But then I'd be concerned about mounting it because of the sanded area on the back side as well. Interesting. I didn't find that successful, so I think when it says dry, I think we're going to try dry. I'm going to do another little practice on this sheet and see how it comes out just dry. I want to give it a chance. I'm going to use this little sketch here just as something to take off from. Strong angles. Again, laying in, as I usually do, my design with the Vine charcoal on its edge. Seems to be picking up well on that. Again, as I lay in the side of the charcoal, I can blend it with my hand somewhat. Here I am again with pan pastels and the large brush. It's getting color on there, but it's very pale. It is not grabbing the intensity of the pan pastels as, say, some other papers would, like UART or Sennelier or something along those lines. It seems to have a very delicate look to it. It is creating a very soft, muted look. A lot of people want that. This might work really well for them. Now I'm moving in with some sticks. Again, the color is just not grabbing the way I want it to. Also, with that texture being so evident, I'm not sure about it. I think maybe if it's blended, it could work better and settle into the recesses of the texture of this paper. That was a harder, like new pastel, just is not grabbing the color. The hard pastel will not come off onto the paper with that rounded texture. This one is barely working. I find myself resorting to using the tip of the pastel, something sharper, getting in there. Maybe pastel pencils could work. I don't know. Here is a very, very soft pastel. It is picking up on that. And notice as I blend it, it seems to settle into the texture of this particular paper a bit more. If you have a blended approach, this might work really well for you. It's funny, I keep checking the pastel like it's the pastel that's not doing the job, and I think it's the paper. And it's not that it's not doing a job, it's not doing the job that I like it to do. So I'm learning that for me, this paper is not probably going to be one I use a lot. even for demos. So I just went to YouTube and I did a search to see if anybody else has tried this paper, and as of yet I cannot find a video on this specific paper. Canson does call it a sand paper, but the sand is not a grit. It's not like, if I were going to look at it under a microscope, I would think that it is little rounded pieces of sand instead of sharp pieces of sand and grit that are going to grab onto your pastels, as does pumice and marble dust. Those grab your pastels really well. I just want to reiterate that I might not be using this paper correctly, but in my typical approach and techniques, it is not working for me. See that texture it leaves behind, but maybe for a very soft approach, it would work wonders. My bottom line, it's always good to try new mediums and new supplies, but this one does not work for me. Let me know if it does for you. Meanwhile, stay creative.